Welcome to another Explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because, well, we're tackling something that literally keeps business owners and operations managers up at night. You know, when you think about an office relocation, your mind probably jumps straight to the heavy lifting, right? The massive conference tables, the endless rows of rolling chairs, trying to figure out how to squeeze a giant copier through a standard doorway. But here is the reality check. Transporting the physical stuff, that's actually the easiest part of the whole operation. Today, we're going to look at why moving an office is way more complex than that, and we're focusing entirely on the absolute most critical asset in your entire building, your paper trail.
Okay, let's dive right into this because there is a massive difference in risk here. Just take a look at the left side for a second. If a computer monitor gets dropped during a move or someone scratches a desk, yeah, it's super annoying. But fundamentally, it's replaceable. You just buy a new one and move on. Now look at the right side. We're talking personnel files packed with sensitive employee data, client contracts with incredibly strict confidentiality clauses, hard copies of highly sensitive financial records. If these items get damaged, mislabeled, or worst-case scenario end up missing or in the wrong hands, there's no way you can just buy a replacement. You're dealing with an entirely different and frankly devastating category of problem. You are dealing with a full-blown security breach.
And for a lot of you watching right now, this risk isn't just about a little internal embarrassment. It's a serious matter of legal liability. If you operate in a regulated field, think healthcare, legal services, finance, insurance, you are bound by strict compliance obligations. And guess what? Those obligations do not stop for a moving truck. The law absolutely does not care that your office was in transition. If a box of sensitive patient data or legal discovery files suddenly goes unaccounted for between your old office and the new one, the burden of explaining exactly what happened falls squarely on your shoulders.
So here's our roadmap for today's Explainer. 1. The high stakes of moving. 2. The secure document protocol. 3. How to vet your movers. 4. Managing regulated business records. And finally, 5. The Maison moving approach. Let's get into it.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the high stakes of moving, focusing on the who and the how. Moving right along to Section 2, the secure document protocol, which is essentially your insider playbook.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Look, your physical environment might be changing, but your security requirements, those remain absolute, which means the who matters just as much as the how. A genuinely trained professional moving crew does not treat a box of highly sensitive documents the same way they treat, say, a box of break room coffee mugs. There's a rigid standard operating procedure that has to be followed. These right here are the 4 absolutely non-negotiable steps that separate a pro document move from a basic furniture haul. First up, preload labeling and inventory. Before a single thing goes onto that truck, every document box has to be identified on a strict itemized list. Second, sealed transport. Boxes are sealed up tight prior to loading and they stay sealed during transit. The crew should never have access to the contents, period. Third is an unbroken chain of custody, which we'll actually unpack more in just a second. And fourth, coordinated destination placement. This means boxes aren't just dumped in some random staging pile at the new office. A real professional crew uses a floor plan to deliver files directly to their designated, secure rooms the absolute minute they arrive.
Let's zoom in on that third step for a minute, because it is incredibly important. Chain of custody. Now, in the moving industry, this means the unbroken tracking of items by assigning the exact same crew from start to finish. Why does this matter so much? Well, imagine one crew loads your confidential files in the morning, right? But then they hand the truck off to a totally different crew for the afternoon delivery. That handoff creates a massive accountability gap. If a box goes missing, the loading crew blames the delivery crew blames the loading crew. It's a mess. Elite movers actually design a plan before they even step foot in your building to ensure the exact same team handles the job from pickup all the way to final placement. It completely eliminates those scary security vulnerabilities.
Let's jump to Section 3, how to vet your movers and exposing weak security. You absolutely need to know how to expose weak security practices before you ever sign a contract. So here is your first critical interview question to pose. Ask them point blank, are your movers direct employees or subcontractors? You see, the moving industry relies super heavily on third-party brokers, day laborers, and temp workers to fill out their crews when they get busy. But if a moving company assigns your job out through a third party, they literally cannot guarantee who will actually be walking through your office doors and handling your most confidential files. When you ask that question, you want to look for a firm, immediate yes to direct, background-checked employees only. Any hesitation, any sort of hedging, or if they give you a, well, it kind of depends on the day, that is a massive red flag. Run. You need absolute, firm confirmation that every single person on that crew has been thoroughly vetted and is a direct employee held totally accountable by the actual company you hired. Okay, here's your secondary vetting question, and it's a good one. Can certain boxes be designated as confidential and handled separately? Now listen really carefully to how they respond to this. A highly trained crew that is used to working with regulated businesses, they'll respect this request without any pushback whatsoever. In fact, they'll actually appreciate the clarity because they operate from a documented inventory anyway. An amateur crew, on the other hand, is going to try to talk you out of it. Why? Because it slows down their simple, sloppy grab-and-go process.
Which brings us to Section 4, Managing Regulated Business Records and the Internal Precautions You Need to Take. Now, what's really interesting about this is the single piece of advice. If you're handling state or federally regulated files, vetting your mover is just step 1. Step 2 involves some extra precautions that you and your staff need to take internally before moving day even arrives. And honestly, the most effective security strategy is often the simplest. Not every file needs to make the trip. A relocation is actually the perfect forcing function to audit your paper trail. Think about whether documents can just be converted to digital formats before the move, rather than hauling them physically across town. By digitizing and then securely shredding those physical copies beforehand, you instantly shrink the surface area of your security risk. It's a total game changer.
But okay, for the sensitive files that absolutely must travel, here is a super simple checklist of self-managed steps. First, assign a designated, highly trusted staff member to personally pack and seal these records. Seriously, don't leave this part to the moving crew. Second, clearly label these boxes as confidential so the expectations are crystal clear with the crew lead right from the jump. Third, run a strict preload box count. And fourth, conduct a post-delivery box count verification the literal second they come off the truck. This doesn't overcomplicate your moving day at all, but it fundamentally locks down your company's most sensitive information.
All right, moving into our final section, Section 5, the Maison Moving Approach, Real-World Execution.
You know, it's one thing to talk about all these protocols in theory, right? But it is incredibly helpful to see how they're actually executed out in the real world by a true professional moving company. So let's look at Maison Moving, a company handling office relocations in Chino Hills and all across Southern California. To really understand their operation, we first have to look at this number, 1984. That is the year Maison Moving was established. And in the world of commercial moving, longevity is trust. Surviving and really thriving in Southern California for decades requires a track record of not just moving furniture around, but actively protecting a client's business continuity without any catastrophic errors.
And that amazing longevity is backed up by this pretty incredible metric: over 60,000 completed residential and commercial moves. I mean, that is a massive number. To put that into perspective, it serves as concrete proof of their operational reliability. When a company has successfully executed at this sheer volume, they have absolutely dialed in their protocols. They aren't just guessing on moving day, they are running a highly calibrated, fine-tuned system.
So the crucial point here is how their specific guarantees align so perfectly with the safe moving protocols we've been discussing today. Just look at their checklist: 100% background-checked direct employees, absolutely no day laborers or temps, which completely eliminates the risk of unknown actors wandering around your office. They build personalized pre-arrival moving plans, ensuring that all-important unbroken chain of custody. Their vehicles are fully GPS monitored, so there is no way anything could disappear off the grid between your old address and your new one. And if a business needs a secure holding period between locations, they utilize these completely sealed, containerized storage units right at their Chino Hills facility. They have literally institutionalized every single security protocol we've covered.
Which brings us to the final and probably most important question you need to ask yourself as we wrap up this explainer. Look closely at your current strategy. Does your relocation plan treat your paper trail like basic office furniture, or does it treat it like a critical security operation? Because there's a huge difference. I highly encourage you to take the protocols we discussed today, ask those tough vetting questions we went over, and make absolutely sure your irreplaceable business records are protected. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really look forward to diving into our next topic with you soon.